Rotary phones have disappeared and Palm Pilots are a thing of the past. And the same thing can be said about file cabinets and stacks of folders filled with paper, all cluttering up space in your office just so you can maintain documentation on your clients. Fortunately for you, Redtail's got the answer. With our Redtail imaging platform, we're providing you with all of the features that you would need for document storage, such as indexes, folder structure. We've got a ton of new cool tools built in as well. Some of these new features include enhanced reporting, logging, and now you can even create your own libraries. So today, we're going to take you through the navigation of imaging, folders, documents, linking to records within your Redtail CRM, creating different libraries, creating indexes. We got some reporting that we're going to cover. We're going to check out your log history, and then we're going to go through searching as well. We're basically going to cover the entire platform in this fairly brief overview. Now, the first place that we are going to start within our navigation is the main navigation on the top menu bar. All right, so we're going to go through each one of these one by one, and then you'll find us revisiting them throughout the presentation. The first two things I want to bring attention to are the Redtail imaging logo and home. All right, these two buttons, these two clicks here are going to take you to the imaging homepage, which is essentially the top level of your main client library within your database. Okay, just next to that, we have libraries, and by clicking on that, you're going to see that you have quick access to any of your imaging libraries, as well as new user libraries as well. Now, this is a cool feature that allows you to create your own user libraries based on who needs them. All right, if you have multiple advisors in the same office, each advisor can have their own library now. Now, we're going to go back here and we're going to create our own libraries in just a little bit. Hovering over and clicking on indexes gives you fast access to search and even manage your personal indexes. Indexes are what are used in imaging to add searchable fields and filters to your documents or your folders. To the right here, we also have reporting. Reporting in imaging has been greatly improved, and we're going to cover all of that near the end. But we got some cool new reports in here, such as a history log, as well as showing you what images or documents have been added, what storage totals have you been using, and of course, storage per user. And then lastly here we have tools. Really, it's only one tool. This is where you can download Retriever for imaging. We're going to cover this at the very end, but I would also recommend you watch a separate video focusing just on how to use Retriever to add a desktop component linking your regular computer to Redtail Imaging, which is an online folder management source. Over on the right-hand side, we see that we have a little clock icon for us to see recent events. We also have a magnifying glass to search for your entire imaging database based on document names and dates and things of that nature. Now, clicking on your name up in the top right-hand corner, that's going to give you the option to log out. You'll see here that I have the ability to switch databases. Most users are not going to have that ability. That ability is really only used by virtual assistants and people who have the same Redtail username but shared across multiple databases. So let's go back and let's talk about libraries. Libraries are separated areas within your imaging structure in which you can store your folders and your files. Now, you'll notice that we have three system libraries right off the bat. We have client, we have corporate, and we have unfiled. Client is typically used for all your forward-facing documents, all of your documents in regards to your clients or your prospects or the people that you are working with. Corporate usually reflects the behind the scenes of your practice. So internal documentation, employee documentation, things like that would go in corporate. And then unfiled really is just everything else. Just below that, we have user libraries. Now, user libraries are going to start off blank until you decide to start creating some. It's a best practice to make separate user libraries for each advisor in your office if you have multiple advisors in your office. The easiest way to navigate between libraries is by hovering over libraries and then just clicking between the ones that you'd like. Now let's go ahead and let's actually create a user library right now. I'm going to go ahead and add one for myself here. We're going to create one for Ricky Redtail. Make sure I spell that right. And we're going to add that library. What that's going to do is that's going to take me right into Ricky Redtail's library where I can begin building my structure, adding my clients and things of that nature. Now, we do have the ability for you to take folders that may be in your main client library and move them over. I'm going to show you how to do that in a little bit. I want to go back though, and I want to talk about some of the other navigations that can be done within your libraries, okay? You'll notice down the right-hand side here that we have our checkboxes, right? That allows us to select multiple folders at the same time. When I check multiple boxes, I can either delete them by clicking on the trash can, and you'll notice that it pops up a warning. All right, this is one of the things that we've tried to do to make it so that you don't make any mistakes. All right, we're going to try and prevent you from making any mistakes as much as possible. When you delete this data, it's important to remember that this cannot be undone. Now, we're always going to run backups and have backups of your imaging, but deleting these things requires you to actually type in the word delete in order to make it happen. In this case, I'm going to click close because I don't want to delete anything. Some of the other things that I can do with my folders are accessed by clicking on this downward arrow here. Now you'll notice I have the option of all or none. Okay, that's sort of the yin and the yang. Clicking all is going to select all of the items in your currently viewed library or folder. And clicking none is going to deselect anything that you might have already selected. Now, just below here, we have all images and all folders. Clicking on all folders is going to select all of the folders within this library only. And what that means is that none of the images are going to be selected. If you do have a combination of folders and images on your particular library, then it is only going to select the folders. Again, the reverse is true of all images. Checking this is going to select all of the images only. What that means is that only the images or documents will be selected. Anything not within a folder will be selected, and you can do what you want with it. No folders and no images have the reverse effect. This option is only functional if you currently have all selected or currently have some folders or images selected. In that case, what it's going to do is it's going to deselect any folders that are currently selected, leaving the selection in place for any images. Same can be said for no images. Again, it's only functional if you currently have all selected or currently have some folders or images selected. What's going to happen is it's going to deselect any of the images or documents that are outside of any folders. It's going to allow you to work with them. Now, we also have the actions column. We're going to discuss this a little bit later here, but this action button to the left of every document that you see, we're going to break that down a little bit more, all right? But that's an action button. That is when you want to work with an individual document or a specific folder. You're going to want to go back to that action button. Now, we're just going to go down the columns here one by one. They're pretty simple. They're pretty straightforward. We have the action button. We have the name. We can sort this by actually clicking on it. We can sort it by ascending or descending order, either starting it alphabetically at the Z or at the A. Over to the right, we also have the ability to see whether or not it's been recently uploaded. It's going to put a little star next to it. And this little image of a little guy, I call it the little fat man, this shows us if the folder is linked to a contact within your CRM. Don't worry, we're going to show you how to do that in a little bit. The date added, I'd like to think, is a little self-explanatory. It lets us know when this folder has been added. And then the size, you'll notice, is empty for most of these. That size is for images or documents only. A good rule of thumb as we continue on with this demonstration is that images mean documents. Documents mean images. I'm not talking about an actual picture. Because it's called Redtail imaging, we're going to be referring to them as images or documents throughout the day. Now, one other thing you're going to notice for your library are the details over on the right-hand side. This is one of my favorite things that we have in imaging because not only is it going to show you how many subfolders that you have, how many actual images or documents that you have, but it also tells you the space that you're using and the space that you have remaining. This is a fantastic graph to show you. Now, it's important to note that Redtail imaging comes with 10 gigabytes of space initially, which roughly translates anywhere between 250 and 300,000 pages. Now, I say roughly translates because that number can be affected by any number of things, such as whether or not a document is scanned in on medium resolution or high resolution, whether or not a document is scanned in color or black and white. So a lot of that, there is some wiggle room there, but for that initial 10 gigabytes of data, you should be able to store quite a bit of information. If you need more size added to your imaging storage size, you can always reach out to our sales team at 800-206 5030 option 2 and discuss further options with them. One thing I do want to show you though with this particular graph is that if you don't want it to be a graph, that's fine. You can go ahead and just click and see actual regular statistics. It actually gives us the numbers, or we can switch back and see our graph if we need to. Imaging is simply a folder structure, all right? Just like on your computer, you can have main folders with subfolders. Imaging works the exact same way, okay? Now, there are 3 ways to add folders, and I'm going to show you all 3 ways to do it, all right? The first way is by adding a new folder to the same library or folder that we are in, okay? You can accomplish this by clicking on the folder icon in the top right-hand corner. You're always going to see this folder icon in various places, whether you're in a library, which is where we're at now, or whether you're actually inside of a folder. And to be able to do that, all we have to do is click Add New Folder and go ahead and type in a name. You can also add a new folder to an existing folder. This would be creating a subfolder. So if we were to go to Bill Adams here, right at the top, and use our action button over to the left, we see that we have the option to rename, copy, move, but particularly for what we're talking about right now, we can also add a new folder. Now what that's going to do is it's going to give us the opportunity to add a subfolder. In this case, I'm going to call it Communications 2016 and add this folder. Now that the folder's been added, we can go ahead and click on Bill's name, go into his main folder structure, and see that Communications 2016 has been added as a subfolder. Remember that anytime we want to go back, all we have to do is click on the top to take us to our main library, or click on the action chain that we have, or the folder chain, if you will, that we have up here at the top to take you back a step. In this case, we're going to go back to our client library. The last way to add new folders is my favorite way, and probably the best, most efficient way of adding brand new client folders to your database. And that is by copying a folder or a folder structure at the same library level that you're viewing. Copying is essentially creating a new folder or folders. Now, since we're here on our client library, let's actually talk about folder structure for a second. As a best practice, I always suggest having a set folder structure with subfolders. So layer 1 would be a client last name, comma, client first name. Within that folder, the subfolders you can have are going to be highlighted here. You can have things like 529 plans, broker-dealer information, correspondence, new account forms, personal documents, tax information. It's really up to you on what you want to create. I would recommend pausing it right here and getting a look at what folders that we have in here if you're looking for an idea. By taking a step back to our client library and then using the action button to the right, we can copy this folder and the structure within it and use it over and over and over again. All right, now it's a good best practice to create an empty folder and subfolder structure and call it something like we did here, folder structure template. You notice that I put a dash in front of it here, and that puts it at the very top of the list alphabetically so that we don't have to go searching for it every time we want to copy and create a new folder. Now you will always have this folder structure, and you can copy it and then rename it to the client that you're adding. Let's go ahead and add a new client. I'm going to put in Jones, comma, Henry. We're going to copy that folder. We're going to give it a second to copy. And then when it's done, we're actually going to be able to go down and find Henry Jones and see that that folder structure that I created has all been copied over within his structure. This is a good way to stay consistent with what you have and what you track with each individual client. Now, you can always go down deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole. You can click into a subfolder and add additional subfolders. You can really do that as much as you want. For the sake of keeping it simple, though, we're just going to work with this initial folder structure. Now, I said that I would show you how to move folders. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this new folder that we just created for Henry Jones, and we're going to move it over to the database for Ricky Redtail. I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to find Henry Jones again. All right, there he is. And I'm going to use the action button to the left. And again, you see that we have the option to rename. Rename pretty straightforward. It allows us to rename the folder. Copying the folder we just covered. We've already talked about adding the new folder, but I want to move it. So by clicking on Move, it's going to bring up the ability for me to select a new location. Now, you're going to notice that as it's bringing up the folder structure here, it allows me to actually pick the target library. It has my 3 system libraries already in there, client, corporate, and unfiled, but then it has my specific user-created libraries as well. So let's pick that user-created library for Ricky Redtail. And you'll notice that all we have in there is the root folder. We don't have anything. So I want to make sure that I select that root folder so that it's highlighted just like this. And then I'm going to go ahead and click Move Folder. Now again, just to make sure that we don't make any mistakes here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to type in Move. Make sure I spell move correctly in order to make that folder move over. Now let's go into that library for Ricky Redtail. Let's go into Henry's folders here and talk about how to actually get images into your imaging library. It's probably a good idea, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to click on Henry Jones here, and remember, on any level, whether it be a main folder, a subfolder, whatever, we have the option to use this left action button over to the left of our folder name and either upload or scan an image. Okay, now it's pretty straightforward. Uploading means that you're going to take it from your computer, maybe your documents folder, your downloads folder, or your desktop folder, and actually upload it to imaging. Scan means you're going to scan directly into imaging. Okay, so let's take the opportunity and let's go ahead and let's upload an image here. What that's going to do is that's going to give me the option to literally just drag and drop if I wanted to. All right, there's 2 ways to upload. Number one is by dragging and dropping. The other is by just selecting from our traditional list here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit select. That's going to bring up a list of my folder structure. I'm going to make sure I find the correct folder here. And then we'll go ahead and we'll just click a sample image. We'll upload that one. All right, maybe it's a driver's license photo or something like that. You'll notice that that image goes to the bottom. It goes to our list, but it hasn't started uploading yet. The easiest way, in my opinion, to upload folders would be to drag and drop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up an actual list of folders. Now this, because I'm on a Mac, is an actual folder inside of my database, and I'm going to go ahead and grab everything. I'm going to select everything, and I'm going to drag and drop. You'll notice that I'm selecting all 8 or 9 of these particular items. What I cannot do is go to my entire demo folder. If I were to take a step back, we'd see that this folder is called demo here. I couldn't just take that whole folder and drop it in. I have to go into the folder and take the items and drop them in. Dropping the folder in is not going to do anything here. You'll notice that it actually says right here, drag and drop images here. That's referring to the documents themselves. So make sure that when you are uploading to Redtail Imaging, that you upload the documents themselves. At least when you're doing it this way. When you're using Retriever for imaging, then you can upload folders in bulk and their contents in bulk. So let's go ahead and click upload, and we're going to give this a second to upload. You're going to notice that our progress bar is going to run through here. Some of them go a little bit faster because their size is a lot smaller. Some of them are a lot larger, so they might not go as fast. For example, this important document, number 7 here, is taking a little bit longer because it's the largest document of our selection here. So we're going to give that a little second, and this is how you upload your documents. Now that those images have all uploaded, let's go into the folder and look at our list here. There we have all of the images. They have their own specific icons for the type of document they are. So for example, these top 4 are PDFs. We have a Word document in there. We have some pictures in there as well. And then a spreadsheet. Our spreadsheet is a CSV file. Another thing you're going to notice is that some of those other columns we talked about over to the right have now filled out a little bit more. The star to show us whether or not something has been recently uploaded is there for every image. We also have the date added. It's a little bit different. Obviously, these have been added a little bit sooner than a particular day or time. I can, however, hover over this particular item, whether it be 1 minute ago, half a minute ago, whatever it says, and it will give me the exact date and time this is added. And then, of course, size. Remember that I said that size is effective only for your images or your documents. That's what I'm talking about right here. I do want to show you how to scan in images really quickly. Now, I am not myself connected to a scanner, but I do want to show you what the actual page looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Scan Image. That's going to take me to the scanning page. Now, if I were connected to a scanner, it would read my scanning software. It would download the service. We would go through all of that. But because I do not have a scanner here, I'm unable to show it. But what I do want to show you is that you can give it a name. You can choose to upload it as a PDF or as a TIFF file. That affects your size as well. You can choose what options you have available to your scanner, whether it's an auto document feeder or whether you have to go in page by page. You can show your scanning options, and you can scan in directly from this page right here. Now, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to actually show you the scanning process. Hopefully, though, if you have been scanning before, I would reference your actual scanning software because it's going to tie in right to this page. We're going to take a step back, though, to our plans here. And let's actually take one more step back to Henry Jones's large folder. Now, you notice that I'm going to use this file path again up at the top. I'm going to click on Henry Jones to take us to his overall folder and subfolders. If I wanted to, I could go back all the way, and that's what we're going to do, all the way back to the Ricky Redtail library, because I want to talk about linking to clients in your CRM. Okay, remember that is done using that action button over to your left. We can go ahead and go down and we can link this entire folder to a CRM contact. That's what we're going to do. All right. Now, because your imaging is tied directly in with your CRM, if you're using both services, what we're going to do is we're going to click on that, and it's going to give us the opportunity to search for our CRM contact name. So I'm going to start typing in Jones, and it's going to actually pull up a list of the Joneses that we have in our CRM. There we have Henry right there. We'll go ahead and we'll link that folder. We're going to give it just a second, and then we're going to be able to actually see where that image has been located or where that document has been located. We can see the linked contacts by clicking on this icon. If I want to go back and link the CRM contact again, I see all of the information for Henry right in that exact area. It's important to note that you can link multiple contacts to a single folder, such as husband and wife to a single imaging folder, but you cannot link multiple folders to a single contact. We could not link a second folder to Henry Jones because we're already using this. However, if we did want to link Marion Ravenwood, we can actually go ahead and find her and link this folder to both people in our CRM. Now, one other thing I want to show you on the action button is the ability to view details. All right, what exactly is that? What it does is it shows you a history of that folder or that image. So we can actually see all of the details, when it was created, who it was created by, what library it's in, what the direct link is, and we can also see the recent history of what we've done here. So we see that we've created this folder. We see that we moved the folder. We see that we linked it to a contact, and then we see that we linked it to a second contact. We can do that exact same thing with the images within our folders as well. If I were to go in to Henry Jones and go to the 529 plans where we uploaded our images, I can actually use this action button to the right. It's going to be a little bit different when dealing with an image directly. You'll notice that most of our options are removed, and now we have the ability to download the image, rename it, move it, delete it, or add indexes. To download the image, all we can do is just click on download image, or actually click on the title itself. That's going to download it to our desktop, to our computer, for us to use as an attachment or to print it out. Renaming the image and moving the image, those are exactly the same as we've covered before, allowing you to move the image to another folder or subfolder if you need to. Deleting the image, obviously, is going to delete it from view. Now let's talk about these indexes here, all right? Because these indexes, you've been seeing them. I've talked about them before. Remember, indexes are used for searching purposes. So the first thing I want to do is show you how to create them. I'm going to go up to our indexes up in the top menu bar here, and I'm going to click on Manage. Now, initially, you are going to start with 0 indexes. Unless you are using institutional indexes directly pulled in from your broker-dealer or custodian, you will start with 0 indexes. Now, if you want more information about institutional indexes, you can always reach out to us. We'd be more than happy to talk with you about them. But what I would do is I would just take a look at some of the indexes that we have built out here. Things like account number, approval dates, broker-dealers, whether or not they're broker-dealer documents, first names, last names. A big one is tax ID. That's a big one that I'd recommend having in there. Another one that we have is servicing advisor. Now, in order to work with these indexes as they exist now, you can use the action button over to the right to either edit or delete. Let's go ahead and let's delete this one because we're going to rebuild it. In order to add an index to be used, what we're going to do is we're going to click Add Index field. That's going to bring up a new page for us to actually build out this index and what we want it to be. In this case, we want to find out who the principal advisor is for this particular document or this particular folder or account. Now, you'll notice that we have 4 options for what type of field this is. It can either be a text box in which you type in the value. It can be a value of true or false. It can be a value of yes or no. Or it can be a list box where you add in a predetermined set of values for you to use in the future. In the case of a principal advisor, let's go ahead and let's select that one. Now you have the ability to do a fast entry or a classic entry. You can enter values one at a time, or you can enter them all in bulk using the vertical bar to separate them. Let's just use classic entry here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add in Tucker McLaughlin. And we'll go ahead and click Add Value. And we're going to watch, rinse, repeat. Let's go ahead and add in Ricky Redtail. Add that value. Let's add a couple more like Susie Smith. We'll add that value. We'll go ahead and we'll add Lindsay Bruce. And then we'll add one more, my favorite, Bob blah blah. Bob blah blah. We'll add that value as well. You can add or remove these values as you see fit. If we wanted to remove one, we go ahead and click on that red X. But let's go ahead and let's add this field. Remember, you always want to create before you apply to documents because you got to have the index, okay? Now, you can always go in and edit these existing indexes. Again, if I wanted to go back down and add an additional value to this, I would want to use that action button and click Edit. The important thing, though, is adding our indexes to our images now. So let's go up to our libraries. Let's go to Ricky Redtail. Let's go to Henry Jones. Let's find his image. Go down the rabbit hole, if you will. Find one of the images that we want to go ahead and add indexes to. Now, you'll notice that we can add indexes to an entire folder if we wanted to, or you can add indexes to a specific document. I'm going to add them to a specific document simply because that's what I want to do. We're going to use the Important Document 7 here. Click on that action button and add View to add indexes. Now you'll notice that when this page comes up, as we scroll down here, we have we have presented to us all of our indexes right off the bat. Whatever ones that we fill out, that we actually fill out and put values in, those are the ones that are going to be added to our image. So let's add an account number. Let's add an approval date such as 2/22/20. Let's make sure I spell it right. 2016. Here we go. Put that in there correctly. Whether or not it's a BD document, yes or no. Who the broker-dealer is. Whether or not it's a contract, let's say no. And let's go down and let's find our first and last name. Again, we're going to do Henry Jones. I highly recommend having a first and last name as an index simply to allow you to pull up every document that belongs to Henry Jones quickly and easily. And then let's use that drop down to select our principal advisor. There are all the values that we added previously. I'm going to select Ricky Redtail, and then I'm going to scroll down to the very bottom and choose to save changes. Now, all of the images that I've created and all the images that I chose there have been added. You'll see right at the top of the page, 7 indexes have been added to that individual image. We can view those indexes by clicking on the action button and choosing to view details. It tells us that the 7 indexes have all been added right there. Now, once we've added indexes, you want to be able to search for them. Okay, and that takes us all the way back up to the top underneath indexes and to search. We're going to click search, and we have the ability again to pick from our entire list of indexes over here on the right hand side. I'm not going to do that though. I'm just going to focus on the specific one, highlighting our principal advisor, Ricky Redtail. We'll scroll up to the top and we'll run our search. This is probably going to only bring up one image, the one image that we tagged it with. Important document number 7. The idea is that we can fill out as many of these indexes as we want and filter them by running this search. So if I wanted to focus on everything that was a BD document that also had the principal advisor of Ricky Redtail, that would produce a larger search. Okay, so use these indexes. These are what really give power to your imaging platform. All right, big help to use these indexes. Lastly, if we want to add missing indexes, we can click on Add Missing Indexes. That's going to pull up a list of every document that does not have an index. Okay, now we can't do this in bulk yet. However, you can go into each individual document, view the details such as what contact it's related to, who it's been uploaded by, things like that. And we can go ahead and add our indexes right here as well, thus removing them from the page. Moving on, I want to talk about the reporting that we have, starting with the history log. The history log is really cool. Again, it's something that we can filter using our filters over on the right-hand side, whether I want to look at the last 90 days or a custom date, and whether or not I want to look at things such as logins and logouts, folders being added or deleted, images being added or deleted. I can actually check these off as well. So I can search for multiple actions at a time, and I can also search for multiple users at a time as well. Something really cool, so I can see, I want to look up everything that John's been doing. I can do that right within this history right here. Gives me a good opportunity to look in and actually find out what is going on within my database and within my imaging library. Some of the other reports that we have are really cool. They're a little bit more aesthetically pleasing, that allow us to work with graphs and work with graphics to actually see what we are generating and what type of information that we are putting in here. The first one is images added over time. And you'll notice that we have 2 parameters here. We have total images added, which is the number of documents that we added. And then we have the total MBs added, which is the size itself. Now, obviously, this is going all the way back to July 16, 2009. We don't need to look at that entire history. Let's get a little bit closer. And in order to do that, all we have to do is click and drag. So I'm going to click here, and I'm going to drag over. And that's going to zoom in my chart a little bit for me. All right. If I want to get a little bit more specific, I'm going to click and drag again. We can click and drag until we get very specific about what we're looking for here. And then if we get too close and we want to jump back a little bit here, we can go ahead and do that just by clicking on Reset Zoom. That's going to take us all the way back to our entire folder again. Let's zoom in just a little bit here, just to give us a little bit of a better idea of what we're looking at. And one other thing I want to show you about this graph is that you can turn off, one or the other of these particular parameters. If I only want to focus on just the total MBs that have been added, I'll just turn off total images added. Likewise, if I want to focus on just the total images, I will turn off the other. So it gives me a much clearer look at the actual numbers of what I'm looking at here. You'll see that on September 24th, 2015, we added 96 images that day. That was by far the biggest day that we had. We have the other reports that can be accessible either from the top menu here, storage totals and storage per user, or we can access those reports over on the right-hand side as well. We have our storage usage, our activity over time here, which is a pretty steady graph. It really is just a graph of our growth. It shows us how we are growing as a company, how we are growing within our imaging platform as well. And the same thing, we can do it. We can drag and drop and do the exact same thing. If we want to get closer to a particular, time frame, we can go ahead and drag and click to get closer and closer and see exactly, what totals that we're using. We can also reset that zoom again to give us our full big picture of the entire life of our imaging library. Storage per user shows us exactly how much space is being used by each individual user here, or we have the top 10 users. Now here we see that Tucker, the person that we're logged in as, they're the ones using the most. All right, Tucker is using 313 MBs out of our size here, and so that's obviously he's the only one that's using things. But this is a good opportunity for us to see who is using the most space. Maybe it'll give us a chance to go in and say, we don't have to use this much space. We could go ahead and reduce the amount of scanning that we're doing, reduce the file size, reduce the resolution, all right? This, again, is designed to give you a look at what's happening in your database. We're going to go back up to the tools again. Remember, this is for downloading Retriever for Imaging. With Retriever for Imaging, you're essentially giving yourself a desktop accessible version of imaging. Now, not all of the functions that I've shown you, today are in there, but you are able to mass upload entire folders instead of a handful of files. It's very easy to drag and drop and give you that desktop link to your online imaging library. Clicking on the little clock here is going to give us a look at our recent events. We can actually click on these to take us into that particular folder. All right. It actually allows us to go in and look into that. Really, really helpful. Shows the recent events inside of imaging for not only images, but for also folders as well. And then, of course, we have the ability to search. We can go ahead and search for names. We can search for images. Let's go ahead and let's just search for anything that says document. All right. I know we have at least one thing with that title there. So let's pull this search up here. And we have several. All right. We have several documents, some of which, as we can see here, were just recently uploaded. Now, once we are in this search, we can actually use the filter over to the right to tweak it and make it more specific. All right. Takes us to an area where we can filter it even more. So if I want this search to look over filters, I can do that. If I want it to look over folders, I can do that. If I don't want to focus on folders and I just want to focus on the images that have been uploaded, all I have to do is uncheck that box and rerun my search, and you'll notice that I'm only going to get the 4 specific documents that we had before. If I want to look for a specific document type, maybe a CSV or a PowerPoint or an HTML or just a straight document, I can pick and choose here as well. If I want to look up every document that is a PowerPoint, I can do that. Really, really cool to be able to go in using this search and pull up just the type of document that you're using. And then last but certainly not least, again, your name is what we use to log you out of the system. And that is really the entire overview that I want to give for Redtail Imaging. Again, if you do have any questions about Redtail Imaging or you want to get started with it, go ahead and reach out to us at 800-206-5030, option 2 for sales and option 3 for support. Thank you for taking the time to watch this overview and have yourselves a great rest of the day.